I love Civ 6. I don't suffer from FOMO, I'm not an early adopter of anything, so I waited for the full launch of Civ 7 before buying. I knew I was going to buy it, that was never an issue. And although I was excited to get my hands on the new game, my excitement has been muted for a while. I was critical of what I had seen from Firaxis live streams. I made a few videos before launch calling out what I thought had the potential to be good and what I disliked philosophically about the newest game in the Civ series. And I really believe that now having played, this was going to be my I told you so moment. Welcome to Civilization Stories, where we explore alternatives to history through the lens of the world's most addictive video game. I want to do a full in-depth review, and I will in a later video and after I've played some more, but I want to get my thoughts and my first impressions out fast while they're at the forefront of my mind. I might add some music. Will I have time to add music? Yeah, I'll add music. I promise. I will do a more in-depth review in the coming weeks, but for now, just enjoy some video of my first playthrough. In my last video where I discussed what I was excited about versus what I anticipated being disappointed by, someone called me out for having been bought off by Firaxis or something.
Well, that's where I see things just a little differently. Contract or no, I will not bow to any sponsor.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
First, let me be clear. I am a Civ fan and have been for a long time. It is the only video game I play. My channel is still very young, and trust me when I say that I don't have the following for it to be worthwhile for anyone to buy me off. In fact, if you're watching this, thank you for taking the time and for putting even an ounce of trust in what I might share. If you like this video and other videos I've created, share your support by subscribing if you haven't already. Leave me a like or comment down below with your own thoughts. But please know that what I'm about to share is my unfiltered, unbiased opinion. Well, biased only insofar as I'm a huge fan of the Civ series. It's also probably going to be a very scatterbrained review, so hold on tight and try to stay with me. Now, a short disclaimer, I did check out some early reviews by other more well-established streamers. I'm a fan of Saxy Gamer, he did an honest review worth checking out. Swade is a big fan of Civ 3, he's also Canadian, so we share something in common. His review is worth checking out, although he could be the most sardonic of all Civ streamers, so proceed with caution. Obviously, I love Potato McWhiskey, and he gave 2 reviews, a positive and a negative, and both were really good. In fact, that opposing forces idea for reviews that McWhiskey did speaks to the true nature of how this game makes you feel. Let me say that if you're determined enough to either love it or hate it, you can and probably will. What I will try to share in my review here is how to look at the game with an open mind, or at least with an opinion that is flexible and responsive to change. Remember, reviews are designed to give you insight into how you might feel about something. At the end of the day, it's important to come at anything from your own point of view and not let any one person's opinion make up your mind for you, including mine. So here we go. As a Mac user, my experience started off a little rough, knowing that I would only be able to play using Steam. I had a Steam account from years ago that I had never touched. I had never bought a game or anything, but it existed and was tied to my Gmail account. Somehow Steam thought that I lived in Zimbabwe. I am currently living in Hungary, but all of my cards and accounts are from my native Canada. It took some troubleshooting, an hour or so of pain and frustration to resolve, but I did manage to pay for the game in euros using my Revolut card, which I have, but isn't connected to any of my bank accounts. It's a long story. Anyway, paid, finally. I only realized much later that I should have just, used my VPN. Oh well, too late. Anyway, before even playing, I was pretty pissed and hating Firaxis. I will say that Mac users are the most underserved of Civ players, and it's a shame. Blame Firaxis, 2K, Apple, whoever, but it blows. It was exciting to launch the game and see all of the little intros, but the game menu has serious flaws. They've gone with the McDonald's sizes, but in reverse. Like, you know how there's regular, large, and jumbo, and you think, why don't they just call regular small, large, regular, and jumbo large? Well, they have 3 map sizes, tiny, small, and standard. You know what they're doing there? Telling you straight up, there will be more, and they just didn't include them at launch. There are 6 map types, not enough, and scrolling over each one doesn't tell you anything about what type of map you're choosing. That is lazy. There are 6 difficulty levels: Scribe, Governor, Viceroy, Sovereign, Immortal, and Deity. When I saw this, I thought, why did they need to change from Chieftain, Warlord, Prince, King, Emperor, and Deity, which it's been forever? My opinion, it didn't need changing. If it's because labels like Prince, King, and Emperor are gendered, like if that's the reason, then, well, I guess that's just our world now. Stupid, unnecessary, like a lot of things in life. Moving on. I decided to play from the Ancient Age and chose Charlemagne. As my civilization, I chose the Maya. I figured, hey, why not? The first rival I met was Harriet Tubman of the... Okay, well, it's the Aksumite. Problem number 1, not enough identifying elements in the diplomacy screen. Because leaders and civs are not tied together anymore, it's not obvious what you're really up against. I felt lost during the Antiquity Age. I am really good at Civ 6, and I guess I kind of thought that this would feel similar, but it doesn't. Crises hit right about the time that I went to war. Everyone got pissed, my armies disbanded, happiness tanked across my teeny empire, and I was glad to get the hell out of there. As a result, and not all that unexpected, I was way behind. For the Exploration Age, I chose to lead Spain. I was still lost, but my little empire was still intact. I ventured out to sea, set up a few settlements, and made some allies. I hated Harriet Tubman, who was now leading the Songhai. I spent some time at war with her, but she was tough, and I made little headway. I failed to make a single treasure ship. I don't even know how, but I survived to the modern age where I became Charlemagne of Mexico. By the modern age, I was beginning to see the game for what it is. Not understanding the various paths to victory, I was never going to win. I hated Harriet Tubman, now of America, and kind of just vowed to be rid of her. Sure enough, taking her cities, I earned a path to military victory. It was much too late in the game to do anything about it, but I felt like I had finally got somewhere. Not surprisingly, I was defeated. By who? Don't know. How did my opponent win? Not sure. Okay, so there's my first major gripe. I'm sure I will win a game soon, and man oh man, they better make a big deal when I do, because losing is so totally underwhelming. Oh my god, how to encapsulate how I feel about this game? Let me try to slow down, gather my thoughts a bit. I want to try to give anybody who's watching the most important bits. The game itself is totally engrossing. So right away, please feel good about that. I'm really good at Civ 6, and I love playing it because I'm good at it. Well, I suck at Civ 7. But I also love learning. I was always a good student. If you don't love learning, you might find playing this game frustrating. It has flaws, no doubt. Huge gaping holes, terrible UI that is bereft of important information. And like I said, I will make a really organized and well thought out review about all of the good and bad later, but what I think is important to know right away is that the game is actually really fun. I was glued to my computer for like 3 days. This game throws so much freaking stuff at you that, especially with a mind full of civilization precedent, it's a little tricky to parse out. But there are 3 basic ideas that I want to leave you with. First, yes, it does feel like Civ. Again, if you're a Civ fan, I think you should feel secure in that fact. Second, the game is fun and definitely keeps you wanting to play. Third, many of the things I thought I would hate aren't that bad, and things I thought I would love are actually a little annoying. This might actually be the title of my full review that I will try to get out in a couple weeks. Okay, bullet points as I throw spaghetti at the wall, much like this game does. I played this game with no real intent or strategy of any kind and made every mistake you could possibly make. I built buildings, I built a wonder or two, I built some units, etc. But I was mostly passive. I imagine that players who approach the game focused on what they want to accomplish will have the most enjoyable and successful experiences. Holy shit, the music is amazing, perhaps the best music of any Civ game. Bravo, Christopher Tin. I think scholars will devise university courses describing what went wrong with the UI and all of the things not to repeat. Volumes could be written on the subject. I want to keep it short because there are so many problems with the UI. But they will be fixed because it is such a well-known problem by this point, and kudos to Firaxis for having their finger on the pulse. There is already a patch. Most importantly though, all of the problems with the UI don't hinder the fun of playing the game. It can be frustrating, but when you learn to steer into that skid, you learn what you need to learn, you grow, and you enjoy the game. It just takes a little time. The city building mechanics of quarters and overbuilding I found very underwhelming. Cities sprawl and there's very little to separate visually between rural and urban districts. It's also impossible to really know what your urban districts are doing or to separate out the various buildings. There is a way to sort of understand a little bit better as you put down new buildings to see what kind of yields you will get, but overall your cities are just a mess. The towns versus cities mechanic is pretty great. You can specialize cities, and this takes some getting used to, but it's an interesting feature. There's no real power spikes anymore since the entire scenario of your game changes with each new age. Sure, there are unique units, but they are always countered by your rival's unique units, so there's nothing to rush to that gives you that edge like in Civ 6. The crises are as jarring and silly as expected. I hated it. I believe it's an option, so I plan to toggle it off for future games. Bless God, they made it a toggle. I plan to talk about ways to improve the crises mechanic when I do a full review because I think there can be a place for it in the game. It's just shitty as it stands today. Switching ages isn't seamless, but it's not a horror show either. Switching civs isn't the worst thing, but I just think it's been handled not quite the right way. I will have a lot more to say here when I do a full review. In fact, that might be a video unto itself. As I say, it's been handled the wrong way, but it doesn't spoil the fun. Leader attributes have no confirm option, so if you mistakenly click on one along the leader attributes tree and you want to go back, sorry, you're shit out of luck. I never got to try out aerial combat. I think one of the big mistakes I made from the get-go is that I think your empire-wide yields benefit most from specialists in your cities. I only started to get half-decent looking yields when I started to employ them. As a result, I think my science and culture were stymied for a long time until I figured it out. Hence why I missed out on several features of the game. My only real tip to players based on the game I played is deploy specialists in your cities as early as possible. The AI has some serious issues when it comes to settling. Sure, I've only played one game, but it was common for the AI to settle in areas that, well, you know, if you're playing Civ 6, you just lose that town to loyalty pressure because it's surrounded by rival cities. Well, there's no loyalty mechanic here, so it was common to see one Civ city completely surrounded by another. Each age does have a nice feeling of completeness, and they are well paced. I don't mind the not needing to complete the science and civics trees since each age is more focused on age-specific quests. It's a twist on the old design, but like many other things about this game, when you steer into the skid, it can actually be really fun, and the Ancient Age especially doesn't feel so rushed. Diplomacy was pretty good. It takes some getting used to, and using influence as a currency works well enough. Espionage could use some beefing up. The two mechanics, diplomacy and espionage, have kind of been smashed together. Diplomacy works well and alliances feel tight, and modern age ideologies make things interesting. There's no quick movement for your units, but it's quick movement between turns, and the camera doesn't move to where things might be happening for you, so occasionally your units just end up dead. They gotta find a way to change that. News items on the panel are pretty discreet, which can be good, but if your rival does something that really impacts the game, then you don't get to know, and I feel like you should. When a war is declared, it gets a name. That is cool. So if you go to war with Xerxes, your war with them might be called War of the Desert, or War of the Mighty Foe, or whatever. It would have been nice to end the game and get some kind of timeline of when major events like those wars, for instance, took place. But the end of the game is one of the weaker points that Civ 7 has going for it at the moment. Anyway, I'm spitting out so much stuff here. What's important to know is that there is so much potential here, even if so many things are missing. And honestly, most of what needs to change is quality of life stuff and not game mechanics. But the game is totally engrossing. Engrossing, I think, is the right word. Captivating, I might also use. It is definitely a mess, but it's kind of like getting a ball of string jewelry that's all twisted together and it's your job to untie it all. It remains to be seen if it will be equally as engrossing the better I become at the game, or if understanding all of its nuances forces my interest to drop off. My first game was a throwaway, and I was more of a passenger on the AI's path through the game. I spent most of my time watching and playing with menus and hovering my cursor over bits of information without knowing the consequences of the actions I was taking. I prefer to be the one driving, but I don't mind staring out the window occasionally and enjoying the view, especially while I learn the pedals. I'm not going to tell you to buy or not buy this game, and it's not for me to judge whether it's worth the money. That's up to you. What I can say for myself is this game will probably end up costing me pennies per hour. I can also let you know with certainty that, as a longtime Civ fan, and I go all the way back to OG Civ, I really enjoyed my first playthrough of this game. Not as much as my first playthrough of 4 or 6, but definitely more than 5. It feels enough like Civ to be Civ. It is worthy, and it does feel like a move forward in many respects. There are many things I would like to see brought back. Now there's a video. There are a few things that could stand to be tweaked or sandpapered a bit and smoothed out, but definitely nothing that needs to be thrown to the scrap heap. Anyway, there's a review. Was it a review? I finished playing a couple of hours ago. My head's a foggy mess trying to process it all. Maybe not my best work. I tried, okay? Fuck off.
It's not much of a philosophy, I know. But well, fuck you. I can live my own life in my own way if I want to. Fuck off. Don't come following me.
Oh yeah, and remember to keep making your own civilization stories, your own amazing path through history, and I'll see you next time.